This time of year, there's always a battle. Do the Chiefs have a QB battle on their hands? We're going to find out today what's going on with Chris Jones. And yes, there are some changes being moved. Welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Some updates today. Is there a QB battle? Yes, there actually is. We're brought to you today by the Gametime app. Just go download it, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Check out Gametime. Gonna get into all those topics today. That is the focus of what we have to cover because we're just to the point now where we can take a look at the stats from last week and get ready for this preseason finale, which is so critical in making the determination of the 53. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, NFL33.com and RGRFootball.com. Thanks for making us your first listen. Go check out another Lockdown show for your next one because everybody's doing this all around. And hey, we have a great preview coming for you. I sat in and recorded the AFC West preview. I think you guys are going to dig that one. It's going to be a series that you want to get signed up for over at the Locked On NFL channel, so check that out. Thanks for making us your first. Like I said, it's easier when you are liked and subbed. It's that notification bell that makes the difference, so you know when we do things like this. We are live currently. It makes things a lot easier. You can also get subbed on the Spotify platform, on the Apple platform, and anywhere you can get podcasts. I'm looking forward to it. Make sure if you want text, get in there at 816-357-8781. It's time to get going because the rubber's about to hit the road, Chris.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner. I actually just put out my roster projection as of the last preseason game, who I think is going to make the roster, at least from what I saw. And there are some moves we're going to talk about a little bit later that I think are kind of interesting.
Yeah, there's always a little bit you can take away from those kind of things. The big takeaway for me today was that it was with the twos at quarterback, Shane Buechele today. Now, I think that is earned. I think that he's done a heck of a job, and I definitely don't think that it can hurt because let's be honest, one way or the other, I think they're keeping all three of these quarterbacks. Whoever plays, if there's ever a time when you want to sit Patrick to rest him, or I don't even want to say it out loud, if there's another reason to have Patrick not on the field, I've learned my lesson there. I'm not going to do that. But whoever it is going to play with the ones and maybe some of the twos because there's always going to be injury attrition through the season. So you have to get, I think, both backups exposed to at least the twos and some with the ones, in my opinion. This just makes sense to me.
You know, honestly, I think we looked at this going into the offseason thinking there's a possibility Shane Buechele wasn't even going to be on the roster. I always thought he was going to be on the roster. I thought that they would keep three QBs just because they had kept him the past couple of years. And now you're looking at a situation where he comes out and he plays before Blaine Gabbert and goes 10 for 10 and runs in for a touchdown, has 105 yards passing. Can't play any better than that. Played with the ones. And you're sitting there in a good situation, and then he comes in and plays with the twos in practice, which, you know, it's not training camp anymore, so we're getting reports, and we're not going to have near as much information as we've had because there isn't really training camp reports anymore. It's just a couple of notes here and there, but we will update you as we get more information.
For sure. And there's a lot that's going to come from that. It was a hot day out there today. They ended up inside, which actually – in a bit of a misnomer, is actually warm, and the air conditioning wasn't running. I don't know if that's standard or not. In years past, I believe it has been. Well, the fans were running and didn't help anybody. I mean, several players made comments out there. Even Danny Shelton was like, yeah, that's hot. So
they talked about it being hotter than practice at Missouri Western.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly wasn't as tough as they thought St. Joe was. So to have the quarterback come in, get used to a new group on a day that's already high stress because of that, I like what that means for his ability to adapt. And whether you want to address the depth chart right now, I don't think it matters. I don't think there's any way that they don't keep three quarterbacks now because you're going to lose whoever you do. There is no getting anyone in the practice squad except Chris Aludicon. How am I supposed to say this now?
Oladokin, I think.
Okay, well done. So I think there's a lot of discussion and there's going to be comments, folks. We'll try to take some of your questions at the end if we can, but it really doesn't matter because whether it's two or three, I don't think the Chiefs are going to give up on a veteran like Blaine Gabbert. They want him in the room for the preparation phase. And now you have three guys that you feel can step in and play with this offense.
I actually kind of do think it matters. And I think it matters because of the number of reps that he's going to be able to get. if Shane Buechele comes out as QB2, he's going to get more reps than QB3 would get. And that's going to matter more for his development. Blaine Gabbert knows the system for the most part, I would think, at this point. He knows, how to play in the NFL. He's been doing it for years. Shane Buechele needs as many snaps as he can possibly get to try to get better. And what this could mean for 2024 and 2025 could be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, every step forward is one less thing that you have to do the next season. If you can prove yourself, you can prove yourself. Just for this season, in terms of being on the field, that's what I mean. I don't think it's going to make a huge impact. But developmental-wise, you have a very good case because we could be having this same conversation in next year's camp. So further development here can only help Shane in particular. In terms of this last preseason game, I think we're going to see both of them. I don't think we're going to see Mahomes a ton. We shouldn't. What was supposed to be a half turned into 3 drives last week. So, I don't know that it's going to make a huge impact. But whoever it is, I think, has shown the moxie to get things done, like you said. Rushing one in, the 105. At one point, both of the backup quarterbacks had more yardage than all of that team that they played. It's going to be a little bit different this week.
Yeah, it really should be. And the one thing I will say is, we say that it should not matter in the season. The reality is Mahomes has missed some time in the past couple of years. I mean, maybe not an entire game, but he's missed time during games. And you've had to have a backup quarterback come in and do something for you. Look at what Chad Henne did last year in the playoffs. Went 98 yards, took him down the field, scored a touchdown. That was huge for that game. So regardless of who's the number 2, yeah, it's not a huge issue for Kansas City. But the impressive thing that I think is so key here is that Andy Reid seems to have done it again. He goes and gets another guy that's undrafted and develops him as a QB, brings him along, and now he really looks like he could be the number 2 here, and he could help Kansas City win a game or 2. We hope
he definitely
not, but
could.
He could.
Exactly. He could. Let's hope that he doesn't have to. Like I said earlier, we're going to take a question or two at the end of the show. If you guys have them, go ahead and throw them in the chat. Thanks for being with us live. Now, we still have some roster moves to discuss. That's coming up later in the show. And we have to take a look at what is this rare air that we're in with Chris Jones. But right now, I have trouble sometimes making sure that I get the tickets that I'm looking for at Arrowhead. Obviously, it's a long trip for me. I have to fly in. I have to do the whole 9 yards, and that causes a lot of stress. There's one way that I think makes a lot of sense in making your life easier, and that's using Gametime. It's the place to get last-minute tickets. So if you just want to get away and get a shot, go for it. Planning for months in advance, sometimes that's troublesome, especially if you happen to be on a schedule like mine. Gametime has deals that you can get right now for today, for next week's event, for the next ball game right now. And it's guaranteed. It means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets at the same section or the same row for less, Gametime will give you a credit of up to 110% of that difference. So you can go find where your seat is, get an image of it, know where you're going, and buy the tickets in a matter of seconds. They're sent directly to your phone, and you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress right now with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL. You'll get $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create and redeem with LOCKEDONNFL. When you create that account, get $20 off. Download Gametime today for last-minute tickets, guaranteed prices, and the lowest ones right now. What I want to know is, yes, this is rare. Yes, this is uncomfortable. But given what we saw last week and what we have to project towards this last preseason game against the Browns that's coming up, I'm not comfortable where the defensive pass rush is. There's no sign of Chris Jones at this point. Honestly, what we're hearing, at least what I'm hearing through some of my sources, is that it's an escalation at this point, that it's not getting closer, that it's getting worse. Is that like the ultimate concern for you? And what do they do going into the season if Chris Jones does not appear by week 1? Chris has thoughts. His mic does not.
Yeah, and I will be shocked if he does not show up week 1, mainly because if he doesn't sign a new contract with Kansas City, it is not going to be a scenario where he's going to be able to get a great contract next year if he doesn't play all 17 games for the Chiefs this season. He's already going to struggle and likely is going to have a down year compared to what he did last year because he hasn't been in training camp. He's not in football shape. Yeah, I'm sure he's in good shape, but he's not in football shape. Even if he showed up tomorrow, he couldn't play in the game on Saturday. There's not enough time for him to acclimate, and you wouldn't want him to specifically because of the fact that there's not enough time for him to acclimate and get into football shape. And so he's going to be sitting there for 2 weeks waiting to see whether he's going to show up and play week 1. I can't see him not being there, because him not being there comes at a situation where if he doesn't show up, he's going to hurt his value for next season.
Yeah, there's no way around it. And I don't think we can judge depth chart or plans for the 53 by who's in front of the podium. But after this second ball game, I did find it very curious that Danny Shelton gets some mic time, talked about his regimen of carb cycling, which is an old school way to go about it, but it seems to have worked for him. In getting preparation for getting his legs back under him and being quick again and flying around. Danny, you don't need to go airborne to fly around, okay? I'm just saying.
Oh, but he did go airborne.
Oh, I know.
Great.
I'm not ready to see it again. But Danny's going to
neither is any offensive player.
Yeah, absolutely. Danny's going to play into the scenario, though, isn't it, about what happens if Chris does not report?
Yeah, he has to. Danny's going to play into it. Keandre Coburn's going to play into it. We just don't know what's going to happen with Wharton. Is he going to be a guy that's going to be potentially somebody that they end up having to put on IR after the initial cutdown day and give him more time? Because at this point, it doesn't look like he's not practicing still, so you still have questions whether or not he's going to be available week 1. Which then gets you into rosterology and how are you going to fit all these players on the team and how are you going to get different guys to be able to put on IR that you need to. Defensive tackle is one of them that you would want to. The nice thing, well, not nice, but not having a Minihue, you don't have to worry about that. The suspension goes directly to the cut down day 53, so you don't have to worry about that. It's not a scenario where you have to keep him on the roster and put him on the day after. So that's good about the suspension part, but it's a big question. I did find it interesting that if you go back and you watch the second team unit that was in there playing this last week against the Cardinals, they had 4 defensive ends on the field, and they were playing 4 defensive ends pretty much for an entire drive. 2 of those defensive ends obviously were playing defensive tackle, and Harrington and Minihue most of the time, but that was interesting to me.
Yeah, you got to be prepared to mix it up, right? And so, like, when you have a lack of defensive tackle strength, or that, I won't even say strength, just an established group that you can rotate through and understand where you're going next, it makes sense to filter in all these guys that have 2 position variability and see who meshes, because I think that adds an extra layer of complexity of not just having the rotation, but having a fit man to man to man across that front. So I was happy to see it. I think they need to do more of it.
They definitely do. And I really don't know what to make of this Chris Jones deal. I've kind of heard the same things you have. It's really going to be a big thing whether or not he's going to show up, and what he's asking could be a lot of money. And I just don't know where things are going right now at this point. At this point, him not being there is just going to cost him more money. And
yeah,
it doesn't matter. I mean, he could show up and not miss a game check, and I guess you can do that. He's going to be fined close to $2 million, I think, by the time the season would come around. But if he doesn't show up, a week before the season starts, there's no way he can really play in week 1. And then you're hurting yourself. No, he can't play. I don't think he could play, period. He has to acclimate. I don't know. I think it's 5 days you have to acclimate before you can even put your pads on. And so he's not going to be able to show up the day before a game and just be able to play.
Yeah, agreed. And that's why folks were asking me, like, when does he have to be in camp to really be effective? And it was 3 days ago by my account to really be prepared. Can you squeeze it in now? Yeah, but you definitely have to by cutdown day. It's coming here quick. It is the 29th of August, and we're going to know what this roster is. That, I think, is probably the next milestone for me. Do you see it differently?
No, I guess it's probably the milestone. I still don't like it. I think that the more he stays out, the longer it's going to be for him to be effective. And say what you want about the Lions. I think the Chiefs have the ability to beat the Lions without Chris Jones, but it's going to be a much harder game without Chris Jones because the Lions are going to have a good offense. I do think that they look like they were a better team last year. I think they're going to be even better this year. I think they could be a playoff team this year. Not expecting Kansas City to lose, but not having your superstar at defensive tackle is going to hurt.
And it's not the cakewalk. I agree with you that it looked like maybe 6 months ago. And if you guys want more about the Lions, we just put up a feature on them on NFL33.com. You can go get subbed right now. Check that out.
Well, it's going to be interesting. I'm really not sure what direction they're going to go. And there's other questions as to who's going to make the roster defensive tackle regardless of whether or not Chris Jones is here. You have a guy that's mispracticed today. One of their defensive tackles mispracticed today with turf toe. And Wise has been starting at times. So how do you make Dickerson was out with turf toe and Wise has been starting at times? How do you make sense of how that works out?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And that's clearly a practice evaluation rather than what we've seen in ball games in the past. But, with Coburn being a rookie, with Danny making this comeback, you're getting a little thin without Turk. I think he's the linchpin as to how they have to move forward. So hopefully we'll have an update on him soon.
I would agree with you in that. And if he's not able to go, then you're really going to be in a world of hurt because you're not going to have anybody other than Noddy that's really got any time in the NFL other than Danny Shelton, who was on the roster last year but didn't really do anything and hasn't really played really big football or meaningful games in a couple of seasons. Yeah, he was on the practice squad. He helped in that regard, but still a different scenario.
It definitely is. Now, there's other roster moves that may alleviate some of these things. We're going to get to those coming up next.
Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed to fit your roster. So with draft prep underway for the upcoming season, let's see who Vinny has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. If you're looking for a player to take in fantasy football drafts who will spark his new team's offense and also help you speed to victory, then you can use a luxury pick on Giants tight end Darren Waller. The former Raider is already riding in style again with Daniel Jones locked into him all throughout training camp in the preseason. The connection is strong enough already to believe Waller will go back to being a reliable cog at his position. Grab him after the top few tight ends are off the board. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With eBay Guaranteed Fit and over 122 million parts and accessories for your vehicle right at your fingertips, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Air filters, brakes, batteries, taillights, alternators, shocks, struts, you name it, eBay Motors has it. And they'll make sure it's the right fit for your car because eBay Guaranteed Fit helps you understand exactly what you need for your vehicle the first time. So go forth, switch gears, crank the AC, which is really important right now with as hot as it is, and say goodbye to sweating if your ride needs a little fixing up. Because now you know you'll always be set up for success from the get-go. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, everything your vehicle is calling for is just a click away. For the parts and accessories that fit your vehicle, just look for the green check. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
I feel excluded, I have to tell you sometimes. These roster moves are not run past me, but they do them anyway. A couple of surprises, obviously, with the depth chart, but what stood out to you today?
Well, Kekoa Crawford was waived with an injury designation. We've never been told what his injury was. It kind of surprised me that he was waived. It was reported earlier in the day that he was waived, but they didn't say injury designation. And then the report came out, and it did say injury designation. So he's got some kind of injury. We have no idea what it is. It's possible he will revert. I would expect he's going to revert back to IR. The big question is, do they keep him on IR all year as kind of a stash type thing? Because they think that he can build into something. I was actually impressed with what I saw from him. Or is it a situation where they're going to do an injury settlement and he'll be gone in a couple of days, which is also possible, especially considering how short they are on funds. Then you look at they brought in another wide receiver from the XFL to replace him. So, that's part of it as well.
Yeah, that was my concern too. I hope that it's not just a pay the compensation and let him go, because I do think he flashed. I agree with you. I thought he showed something that I'd like to see him a year on the practice squad, see what he can do coming back later, because I do think that this wide receiver group is going to continue to turn for the next couple of years.
And it might be 2 years that he would need to be on the practice squad, because I think one of the things he needs to work on is his body and the composition of the body and getting ready for the rigors of the NFL season. And if he could be on the team for 2 years and, be on the practice squad, next year and maybe make it in 25, I guess that's, what you could hope for. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of turnover at the wide receiver position in the coming years just because of the way the contracts are working out. And so there's going to be questions there. Jawan Green was the guy that they signed in his place. The other news that really came out that was interesting was Pacheco is no longer in a yellow practice jersey. He is full go at practice.
Yeah, that's nice to see. They'd originally said it might have been last week on the 18th. I'm glad they just gave him the weekend off. That's great. You want him for week 1, and that's all he has to work up to now. Now, he's been out. He's been running drills, but now it's about getting your legs underneath you. So I think this is pretty good timing. Tough day to be your first day at a full-go practice, though.
Definitely. And the big question I have, and I kind of get it to an extent, but I also don't like it, is it sounds like the team is considering having him play in the week 3 game. Don't love it, but I understand it would be good for him to get some, get popped by a couple of other players that aren't his teammates and actually, get the feel for the NFL field again before the regular season. But also a little bit of a risk there, in my opinion.
Yeah, but that's what the preseason's for, is getting going. I don't think that it'd be a prolonged one, especially given I don't think the ones are going to be out there terribly long to begin with. So get him going, see what he has. If he hadn't had this injury and it was a preseason game, he'd be out there. So if they feel that they've been cautious enough.
Week 3, he wouldn't play. I don't think any of the starters are going to play this week. Sorry.
I mean, having not been in the preseason at all, He would have played at some point. So you want to get a few reps in one way or the other. So how much that is, I don't know. That could be 3 snaps and gone, just to give everybody out of there. You don't expect the starters to play at all, is what you're saying?
No, I don't. I don't think maybe they'll have some of the guys that are starters but need more reps, maybe some of the younger guys. I don't really think the offensive line is going to play. I don't see Patrick playing, Travis Kelce. Generally speaking, Andy Reid doesn't play his starters in the last preseason game, so we'll see. Maybe I'll end up being wrong. But that would be my guess, is that none of the starters are going to play, at least the known starters that have been there for a while. The other thing that is interesting to me, looking at going into this next game, going in and talking, Andy Reid said on Monday, after Monday's practice, that, that 6th or 7th wide receiver position is going to be a very, very big battle. I don't think that there's any way. I think everybody agrees at this point. I don't think there's any way that they're getting away from keeping 7 wide receivers at this point. Whether or not they have 7 wide receivers week 1 is a different question. But I think they're going to have 7 wide receivers at cut down day.
Yeah, it was just nice to hear Andy acknowledge the fact that that's been a pretty good rarity. They've kept 5 a few times in recent history. A lot of times it's 6 wide receivers on this roster at the 53.
They've never kept 7.
I know, and to hear him actually put it out there, that was pretty gratifying, I have to say, because it's been a while since I thought that they should. Let's see if that's a deflection, though. There's still a lot to be done, and I think that last spot is something that still has to be fought for. So let's see what happens. Now, there's a couple of other things that we have some questions here that I do think are pertinent this time of year, especially after what we've seen in the run game. John Coy started us off. Do you see either of CEH or Chris Jones getting traded at this point?
I don't. And the reason I don't, Clyde, maybe, I guess it's possible. When it comes to Chris Jones, the problem is you're not going to get value. The only time you're going to get value is before the season started. And I just can't see somebody trading for Chris Jones right now, giving you, whatever you want to say his value is. It'd be a 1 plus whatever. I don't know what else you would even call it, because then the problem is going to be they're going to be in the same exact boat that Kansas City's in right now, and having to pay him whatever he's asking for as a contract. And, I don't know what exactly that is. There's rumors out there about what it is, but, I'm not going to speculate. I can't see Kansas City wanting to move him. And he said he doesn't want to play anywhere else. So that's another part of it as well. He doesn't have a no trade clause, but that's going to be a big part of it, I would think.
Yeah, I just can't see it happening. There's no way to recoup after that. So I agree with you. CEH, I don't think you're going to get value for that either. It could be a possibility, but honestly, is it more valuable to you to get some kind of compensation that is super, super low. I don't know that you'd even get a 7th-round draft pick for him. So if you're not getting draft capital, I'm probably not doing it, just because with the attrition of the running back position in this league, it's better, in my opinion, to have a third running back than it is to have a non-draft pick or something like that, or some kind of other kind of compensation. So I don't know. I just don't know if there's a market for it, given what we've seen in the preseason.
Yeah, the positions that you could look for a trade, I would say maybe Kansas City's looking at trading away a wide receiver, Amir Smith or Marset, or one of those other guys. Maybe Cornell Powell, if he shows up in this next game, could get them a low round pick. But I don't really think you're going to be trading away a running back. I mean, you're guaranteed the money on CEH anyway, so you're not going to get any value there. Now, maybe you look at an offensive lineman. Maybe they think they have some offensive linemen they could trade. I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening there. I will say there's no way that this is going to happen. Colts give Jonathan Taylor permission to seek a trade. What could the Chiefs package to get him? How much do you think Veach is thinking about this? I would say 0%, personally.
The problem is nothing can happen until Chris is done. What's Taylor? He's 4.3 base salary that you have to absorb this year, unless you work out some kind of compensation deal with the Colts. But if they're trying to move away from him, that owner is not going to pay part of his salary. I'll tell you that right now. That guy is fired up. Jim Irsay is on. I don't even know if he'll let him actually get traded. He could seek one all he wants. But Michael, you ask a good question. In terms of compensation, I think the Colts would be looking for very minimum, an equal pick that they spent on him. He was a second.
They're asking for a first.
Are they? Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's just ridiculousness. So despite the connections there with Chris Ballard, I don't think that this happens either.
Yeah. Nope. I agree with you. I don't think that there's any way that happens.
So KL, we'll wrap up with you. If a deal isn't reached with Chris, where do we go to free up cap space? It doesn't seem like they have the funds to operate. And that's absolutely true. Injuries, any kind of need, they don't even have the ability to do that right now. And so what are the options, Chris? You tell me what you prefer, and I'll tell you whether I think it's nuts.
Well, Travis Kelce's one of them. I think that's the biggest one. I don't know. You could potentially do something with MVS as well, I guess, but you're not going to free up a ton of cap space. I think you're really looking at Joe Thuney and Travis Kelce are the two guys that are going to free up cap space. And the problem with doing Thuney is you have nothing guaranteed to him after this season. So you could technically, and I'm not saying I want to, but you could technically cut him next year and have no dead cap other than his prorated bonus, which would be about $12 million on the cap next year. So if you do that and you get space from him for his $15 million base salary, then you're adding to dead cap space in 24 and 25. His cap number for the next 3 years is $22 million. Around $22 million, $22.5 million for 24 and 25, and just over $22 million in 23. So really the only guys you could really do it with are Travis Kelce and Joe Thuney probably.
Yeah, Thuney was the one I was thinking of, because despite being 30 already, I'm not sure if he's 31 at this current moment, but he will be this season, I believe. I don't see a drop off. So if it was him that it took a year extension, wrangling some of that money, I'm sure it can be done. And I personally don't have a problem with that right now, given his performance level.
He's 31, by the way. Yeah, I don't either. I guess you could also look at Justin Reed as well. I suppose that's possible.
Fair enough.
I still wouldn't go that direction.
Yeah, I don't know that you're as sold yet. Year two in this defense is going to be important for Justin Reed. So I would lean towards the known quantities in Thuney and Kelce, and that's probably about the only direction that you can go in right now.
I would agree. I think that's the way they have to go, and that's what it's going to look like. And they got to do something with Chris Jones. At some point, he's either going to show up or they're going to have to trade him. I can't see them doing it, but that's the only options they have at this point. Yeah,
agreed. Harry asked, are you concerned about the indoor turf? Nazi with the ACL, Matt Dickerson today, Wharton coming off the ACL, Shelton in today's press saying he doesn't like it. Tribe openly said that Newhigh said he counts his games on turf. Yeah, absolutely. It's a necessary evil. They try to practice outside whenever they can all year long, even in the winter. But you got to get work done. A day here or there, I don't think is as catastrophic as if you practice on it constantly or you have to play every game on it. So, it is something to pay attention to, Harry, but I don't think it's a giant concern. You?
I don't think it's a huge concern. I understand the players don't like it, but I also don't think that they want to be out in the heat in 107, 108 degree weather. So I think they probably would be okay with being on turf instead.
Yeah, I have to agree. Let us know what you think. Leave your comments down below. Make sure you like, sub, and hit that bell. Check out another Locked On show for your next one because we are here 5 days a week. You everydayers, we appreciate you, and we know that you knew that, but spread the word, will you? And if you want on the text line to get the immediate goods, we can get you at 816-357-8781. Get signed up over there. We appreciate your time. We're going to be back tomorrow with Matt Derrick, get the inside view from the facility. We hope that you will join us there. Thanks for spending your time with us today. You have a lot of options, we know, on all these platforms. We appreciate you choosing us. Thanks for that, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.